Hey friends, thanks so much for joining me, and welcome to all of you out there in Facebook Live land. This is going to be pretty exciting. I actually got the idea for this and the courage and inspiration from Randy Zuckerberg. Randy Zuckerberg is Mark Zuckerberg's sister. She was actually the innovator and thought leader that came up with Facebook Live. And I heard her in a presentation at the Genius Network event last week. She's a very inspirational woman. She's phenomenal. I recommend you check out her page. But today, what we're going to do is we are going to answer the number one question that I have been getting for clients so far in 2017, and I'm sure it's on a lot of your minds. And that question is, are we entering another real estate bubble? And that question makes a lot of sense because this year, in many areas of the country, we've hit all-time highs in real estate prices. And so the question is a bubble forming? Is a crash imminent? And where are we in the economic and real estate cycle? So we're going to try and answer that today. But first, let me make a little disclosure to you. Number one, I am not a licensed real estate agent, and I am not offering you professional real estate advice. What I am is a mortgage loan originator, been in the business for 16 years, had the honor to serve over 1,000 clients in my career, and I've had the unique perspective of being a fourth generation real estate investor. So my grandpa's parents were real estate owners and owned apartment buildings, and that has followed down. Today I co-own and manage over 100 rental units in the Utah area with my mother and wife and several other partners, as well as doing loans for clients all over the country. So it gives us kind of a unique perspective on what's going on in the marketplace. All right, with the legal disclosure out of the way, let's get into this idea and the genesis behind the thought process that high prices or an all-time high in price means that a crash is imminent. Now, this is a chart of Amazon. You might have heard of them. This is going back to 1997, I believe. And you'll notice that this stock just kind of moved along, and up in about 2010, Amazon hit an all-time high in price. Now, at that moment, I'm sure there were a lot of people who thought, wow, this thing's hit an all-time high. Maybe this is an indicator that the stock has peaked and it's going to crash. But you'll see over the last 7 years, that stock has gone up 1,100% since 2010. So what's the point, and what's the parallel to mortgage? Well, into real estate. Well, because a price has hit an all-time high, in and of itself is not an indicator that a crash is imminent. It tells you that there's momentum in that asset, whether it be real estate or stocks or gold or anything else. And it does give you a moment to pause. You know, Warren Buffett has a great quote: you be cautious when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are cautious. So it's a good idea to be cautious when prices are hitting all-time high, but we need to look at some of the other indicators, and I think the best thing we can do is go back in time and see what were the indicators that might have led to the crash of 2008. So the next slide is what I think was the number one precursor to real estate values getting a little crazy and ultimately the mortgage meltdown. So on the left-hand side of the slide, what you're going to see is in June of 2004, actually back in about 2002, the mortgage credit availability index started to spike. All right, what that means is that mortgage credit got crazy loose. You remember the ninja loans? No income, no job, no asset, no problem. That was a problem. It became a problem, and we all saw when credit started to dry up. You'll see in 2006, mortgage credit availability index started to drop. As that dropped, it became harder to get a loan. You actually had to have assets, you actually had to have credit, you actually had to have income. You needed to qualify to debt service that mortgage. And as we go along this track to the right, this is what I want to point out, is between the bottom of the market in 2008 and where we are now in September of 2017, I realize it's November now, but the data's got a lag, you'll notice that mortgage credit has gotten a little bit easier to get. The index has come up a little bit, but we are still way below the historical norms. So what does that mean? That means the demand for housing today is real demand. People are paying cash, or they're actually qualifying for mortgages. They have credit, they have jobs, they have assets, and they can debt service the loans. I remember originating loans in this time, and the conversation clients were having, and what they were telling me was, hey, it really doesn't matter if I can debt service this loan, because in 6 or 12 months, prices are going to go up another 20%. I'll refinance, I'll roll the debt, it's called, and I'll just keep kind of refinancing or rolling the debt. They had no plan to pay the debt off or even to be able to debt service. So that is probably the most key slide that I can show you. Now let me show you what interestingly happened as credit started to dry up. So we saw in about 2005, credit started to dry up and it was harder to get a loan. You'll notice in this slide that in 2006, delinquencies started to rise. And from 2006 to 2010, wow, we ended up mortgage delinquencies greater than 10%. When you couldn't roll the debt and you actually had to make payments, what happened? Mortgage delinquencies spiked. And if this chart were to continue to go down to the right, what you would see is that national delinquency rates, which I've got here on the next slide, you'll see that national delinquency rates are incredibly low today. On the far right-hand side, you will notice that in 2017, 0.7% of the mortgages outstanding are in delinquency or serious delinquency and foreclosure. And if you compare that to the greater than 10% in the crash, it shows you that the tightening in credit standards have actually made it so that mortgages are performing well. And that is one of the forces that will stem another bubble. We don't have a mass runaway in prices. We have people who are actually qualifying, and mortgages are performing very, very well today. Speaking of performing very, very well, these are the actual year-over-year price changes in real estate over the last 12 months. This data is provided by CoreLogic, who's a phenomenal data aggregator and company that studies home values, amongst other things. And you'll notice that there has been incredible appreciation, especially in the western states. From Utah and Colorado to the west, we have seen really solid economic expansion. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. And that has caused home prices to go up significantly. That's the reason for the appreciation. So this is a quote from Rick Sharga. He's an executive at 10x.com, another data aggregator company. And it says, we're definitely not in a bubble. We have a handful of markets that are frothy and probably have hit an affordability wall of sorts. But while prices nominally have surpassed the 2006 peak, we're not talking about $2006. That's a really important point, and we're going to get to this a little bit later. But the question you need to ask yourself is, in 2017, real estate prices have hit an all-time high, but so have incomes. If you look back at the income you were making in 2006 and the income you're making in 2017, most of us are making more money in 2017. So we can afford more of a home. The home is still of similar affordability to us because our income has gone up. Now, the other thing that's fueling this appreciation run that we're having is the economy. And the economy is doing pretty darn good. Employment rate is down around 4.4% nationally. In the second quarter of 2017, GDP is ticking up. You'll notice in the fourth quarter of 2016, we're at 1.8%. First quarter of 2017, 1.2%. Second quarter of 2017, 3.0%. So unemployment low. GDP, gross domestic product, that's a measure of all goods and services sold in the United States, is ticking up. So we're seeing some expansion there. And what is that doing to buyers? Well, that's sending buyers out to look at homes. What you're going to see is these dark blue states, which coincidentally are the similar states that had very high appreciation rates, are still seeing very high buyer traffic. Now, how is this tracked? The National Association of Realtors has key boxes that they monitor on all of these listed homes, and as a buyer's agent takes a buyer through the home, then those numbers are tracked nationally, so you can see what kind of traffic, and you'll see that the demand is pretty darn high. It's strong to very strong in most areas of the country. And that is making it so that there's not a lot of supply. All of this demand is causing supply. I know this is probably nothing new to you, but supply is pretty slim. You'll notice these dark blue states. These dark blue states, and in the bottom right, we translated that in Spanish for those of you. We wanted to make sure that we were understood in all languages. But what that's supposed to say is the dark blue states are sold in 30 or under contract in 30 days or less. So think about that. You put your house on the market on November 1st, and by the end of the month, if you're in Utah and Nevada, a lot of these states in dark blue, you've got an offer and your home's under contract. So the real estate market is moving very quickly. The next slide we're going to look at is inventory for sale. You probably know that there's definitely a shortage of supply. There's not enough homes being built to meet that supply. And realtors look at this, and the real estate community looks at inventory as a shortfall if we're under 6 months supply. What that means is that all of the homes in the United States, if no new homes were to come up listed, no new homes were to be available for sale, we would sell all homes in the United States in about 4 months. What an equilibrium market is considered 6 months. So whenever you have less than 6 months supply of homes, it's considered a seller's market, and you have to be more competitive as a buyer to get your offer accepted. I'm sure many of you are feeling that. So we talked about affordability, and I want to go back to that just real quick. This is a quote from Sean Becchetti. He is the chief economist at Freddie Mac. And he says, housing is at an near record affordability. And I can prove it. And he talks about the housing affordability index and how that our incomes have gone up in pace with the pace of real estate appreciation. So the next slide is the National Association of Realtors Housing Affordability Index. If there's one slide that I think would be important for you to pay attention to, it's this slide. Because the fear of prices going up and there being a crash means that the fear is that housing is no longer affordable. And so what this slide does is, the Housing Affordability Index does, is they say, okay, if we took the median home price in America, and then we took the median wage in America, and we took the average current interest rate to calculate a mortgage payment, how affordable is real estate today? And you'll notice going back to 2000, that number was about 120. And as we've gone from 2000 to today, what you're going to notice is there was a crash in affordability, meaning houses were not very affordable in 2005 and 2006. Homes got very affordable after the real estate crash because your home prices in many areas of the country dropped in half. Interest rates were at 3%. Housing was incredibly affordable. So today in 2017, yes, housing is less affordable than it was right after the crash, but it is still historically very, very affordable. All right. So this is a quote from Bing Bai and Edward Golding at the Urban Institute. And I think that this slide speaks to all of the things that we've talked about so far. And I think what's key for homeowners out there right now is to make sure that if you know you're in a competitive market, and if you make the decision that this is the right time for you to go ahead and look into buying a house, you got to make sure you've got the right tools. And so I remember when I was young, I was about 12 years old, I had a landscaping job, and I used a square mouth shovel. And we did a lot of cleaning up of the yard, and we did a lot of weeding with that shovel. And one time my grandpa said, hey, we have a sprinkler main break, and so we need to dig a hole that's about 4 feet deep. And what we're going to do is then we're going to dig out the hole, and then we're going to fix the main. And I spent about 5 hours digging that hole with a square mouth shovel. And I got exhausted before the hole got dug. And I had hole fatigue. A lot of buyers out there have buyer fatigue. I had hole digging fatigue because I had the wrong tool. And Grandpa said, well, no, you're using the wrong tool. You need to have a angled barrel nose shovel. And with that, just a slight difference of the angle, you'll be able to dig more easily. And what I find is happening with clients right now that are having a hard time finding a home and getting a little burned out on the whole buying experience is that the angle they're taking is off just a little bit. They're using a square mouth shovel when they should be using a round mouth shovel to get the job done. So I want to share with you a couple of tools that our clients have been using, and I think you're going to find it really helpful to get the job done if you're looking to buy a house in the next year in this competitive real estate market. So the first tool that I want to provide you with is an article that we wrote, and we're going to put these comments and links in the comments section so you'll be able to link to this article. This article is called 7 Insider Tactics, How to Pay Less and Still Get Your Offer Accepted. Now, the genesis of this report, we had a mastermind, if you will, a bunch of mortgage and real estate professionals, and the topic of conversation was, how are you guys getting your offers accepted in this crazy competitive market? And what came out of that meeting with these really successful real estate and mortgage professionals was these 7 insider tactics. These are the difference between digging with a square mouth shovel or a round mouth shovel. So I encourage you to click on that link and take a look at that article, and feel free to share that article as well. If you have any questions, happy to answer those as well. The next tool that I think you could use is a tool called Home Scout. Now, I just learned that Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, they're not real estate companies. They're actually media companies. And they sell advertising to realtors and to mortgage folks, and that's how they make money. They're actually not paid to provide buyers with accurate information. And in fact, their information, their feed from the multiple listing services from around the country are on delay. Oftentimes those delays can be a week to 2 weeks. And so the data that you as a consumer or me as a buyer is looking at is dated. And in many cases, the information is so dated that up to 47% of the information on those websites is incorrect. So if you're a buyer and you're looking at a home that you fall in love with and it was sold last Thursday, and if you're a buyer and you don't know the 7 insider tactics to compete with the real estate and mortgage professionals that are really competing at a very high level, you're going to get buyer fatigue. You're going to get tired of being unsuccessful at finding a home. You just need the right tools. So I've given you a link to Home Scout. You can download this app. It's a mobile app. It gives you 100% of the homes that are live and active on the multiple listing services in all 50 states. And it is a direct feed into every MLS. It's updated every 15 minutes. There is no mobile home searching device, anything like this on the market right now.